We are in a moment. Welcome back to another episode of my show here live tonight. And this is a lovely Tuesday evening, and we are definitely are live with my guest, Sydney Wicker. I think I pronounced it. Apologies if I mispronounced it, but welcome to my show. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I got to say as well that I've not actually made this happen. A digestion happened when we had on Cash Madlock on the show. A shout out to Thomas, who worked with Cash, also worked with my guest Sydney, and we got chatting in the DMs on Instagram, and he recommended me to have on yourself, many other people as well. But you were one of the people who responded back to my message request, so much appreciated for your time today. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. I've been busy as we were talking a little bit before we went live. Currently working as we speak. Yeah, I've just been out and about trying to stay cool. I'm currently in Texas and it is supposed to be near 100 degrees today. So, trying to soak up as much of my time in the car with AC as possible.
Yeah, it's very hot everywhere. I think it's hot over here in Manchester, England as well. We have in glorious weather. It's gonna be here for next at least next 10 days. So hopefully you guys have decent weather for next 10 days as well.
Yes, it seems like it.
And it's good for covering sports as well.
Yeah,
So you can't complain
that's true. That's true.
because I know occasionally it can get a bit, miserable and a bit nasty out there. So at least you don't have to wear any umbrellas or anything like that.
I know that's been the story of my life lately is umbrellas, rain boots, and make sure you got stuff to cover the camera equipment. Like it's a lot.
I know what you mean, but at least you can enjoy all the lovely weather and the sunshine. This is the main thing.
Yes, exactly.
So whereabouts are you currently in Texas and what parts? Just for my viewers over here to know
Yeah,
where you are.
so I'm currently in the middle of a small little town. I have no idea where I'm at. I'm a few miles out from Gatesville, Texas, but I am located in the Temple and Waco area,
Oh,
which
right.
is in central Texas. So I'm only about an hour away from Austin, about 2 hours away from Dallas. So super
Oh,
central.
yeah, not too bad that. Yeah, easy
Yeah,
get to both cities and some
exactly.
fantastic cities they are as well.
Exactly.
Have you got a particular city you love more? Does that be Texas at
In
all?
Texas,
It could be in Texas or it could be anywhere you like.
I love Nashville, Tennessee. I think it's just such a fun city. It's somewhere I've always imagined living one day. I've kind of moved around a good bit though.
You
I was
have.
born in Michigan and then moved to Colorado when I was 12 years old because my dad got a job there. So I basically did middle school and high school in Colorado and then decided to stay there for college. And then after I graduated from college, I love to tell this story, but I remember I was about to graduate. It was April and like end of April, almost May, and Colorado had gotten this record snowfall. And I'm not kidding you. I opened up my front door and there was so much snow I couldn't even walk out. Like it was like in the movies when they have snow days and it's crazy. And the campus never closed for snow days. And we did here at the end of April. And I said, screw this. I'm done with the snow. I'm going somewhere warm. I got a job offer in Meridian, Mississippi, and I was like, you know what? I'm going. And
Yeah.
I haven't seen snow in about 4 years
Oh, that's
since.
good.
Yeah, I moved to Meridian, Mississippi, and then was there for 2 years, and then lived in Tallahassee, Florida for 1 year,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then have now been here in Texas for almost a year, which is exciting. So, out of all the cities I've lived in, I have to say Meridian, Mississippi is my favorite. I know it's um, not what a lot of people expect my answer to be, but there was something about getting to be somewhere for the first time as an adult on your own and getting to create your own memories and your own impact. And I felt like I really embraced that during my 2 years there. And I fell in love with the community. I fell in love with the people that I worked with. And it just was truly the best 2 years of my life.
That's good. And I'm glad that you're having a good time in
Yeah.
Texas at the moment. And I also am happy that, you decided to move away from cold temperatures as well and go somewhere warmer as well. But do you feel homesick? Like, 'cause you moved around quite a lot in your life. Do you ever get
Yeah,
homesick, or does it not affect you because of the amount of times you've moved around the country, so you're kind of used to always on the go?
yeah, it's funny. Every once in a while I get a little homesick, but really I'm just like so busy. I don't feel like I have a lot of time to think about it. I seriously work anywhere from like a normal 8-hour day to 12 to 14 hours
Oh
sometimes.
wow.
So I feel like I'm just so busy and on the go. And like I get to travel a lot for work, which is so fun. And a lot of my travels have let me reconnect with friends who have moved to different states and stuff. So I do get a little homesick every once in a while, but I would say for the most part, I'm so busy, I just really don't think about it. And I am really thankful my friends and family come and visit me quite often as well, too.
Well,
So
that's
that
good.
helps too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is good. That is good. What would you say got you to cover sports then? Because of course you are a reporter and anchor, I believe. But what made you to cover that side of things? Why not be, I don't know, in the thick of the news, for instance, or I don't know, maybe even the weather itself?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. And this is not a diss to any meteorologists out there. I think they're so hardworking, but I think weather is so boring. I'm like, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it raining or do we have sun?
Yeah.
Like, I need a little more in my everyday. And I'm somebody who loves to be out and about. I don't like to be stuck in the studio. It's crazy because people come into the studio and they're in awe. They're like, oh, this is so cool. I'm like, I love when I'm not in here, actually. Like, I love to be out in the field so much more. And sports really gives you that opportunity. But I never really saw myself in the sports field. And I think the reason it took me so long to see that is because there just really was not a lot of women on TV when I was growing
Hmm.
up. And the only female sports reporter I truly can remember off the top of my head seeing on TV was Erin Andrews. And that's it. And so when I was a senior in high school, I couldn't decide where I wanted to go to college, what I wanted to do. It was like a whole thing. Kind of thought about being a teacher, kind of thought about doing different things. And my dad was just like, you love sports and you're so good at talking about them. Why don't you be a sports writer or sports reporter? And that's when it kind of clicked for me. And it took somebody else like mentioning it to me that really made me realize that. But like, I grew up an athlete. I played soccer my whole life. I grew up going to football games with my dad. Like, sports has always been a big part of my life. I never thought about making a career out of it. And so I guess when I just saw it that pathway, I was like, I've never had an interest for news or weather or anything like that. I've always had a passion for sports. I just didn't know which avenue of sports I would get into. And then my first semester at Colorado State, when I was on campus as a freshman, I walked into our studio and I just fell in love instantly. And I loved the rush of being live. I love how imperfectly perfect it is. And I really, it just clicked for me. And
Yeah.
I worked my butt off through my 4 years so that I knew I could get a job in this field. And I've been thankful to only ever have sports jobs. I've never had to settle for a news or sports slash role where you have to do both of those. I've always
Hmm.
had full sports opportunities, which I'm so thankful for.
Yeah, and but people who might not recognize the name you just name dropped,
Yeah.
I do have right here on the show. Let's just bring it up. This is, I believe, the right person you mentioned, uh, Erin Andrews, who you just recommended or you just mentioned here on the show. So I don't know if you can see my screen now, but that is Erin Andrews right there on your screen. That is the person I believe you mentioned. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, that's yeah. So just for people who may not recognize the name, that is her, but you might know the face. Just thought I'd just throw that up on the screen for people at home might be use Erin Andrews. So we saved you the trouble of having to Google that. But yeah, no, I think it's great having more strong women on TV because it inspires the next generation. Because people might think, oh, this is just a man's job, or maybe not for women, but you and many other inspirational women are showcasing that actually you can do whatever you want, and that any sport is now accessible to women, and that you guys are now putting the spotlight on that, not just in the news world, but also in the sports world. Because in the last decade, a lot more sports are now being shown on TV of women as well, which is great to see. So I'm sure you're a big advocate for that, and hopefully you want to see more of that for the next generation as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love supporting other women's sports. I love watching them, covering them. I really have turned that into almost a passion project of mine too, to make sure I am covering the girls from the high school level or even younger than that and giving them that exposure
Yeah.
because it's important. And, thankfully a lot of work has been done and we're starting to see more of this, but it's
Mhm.
been a slow progression, and I feel like I've even witnessed a lot of this change as well, which I'm really grateful for. While I was in college, I helped to launch the first ever all female sports show that was ran behind the scenes and on air and highlighted women's sports all
That's
across
cool.
the board. Everything was done by women. Yes, it was so awesome and so cool. And that was something I was really proud to work
Yeah.
on while I was there, was launching that and getting to do that. And so now I just try to find ways to do that, whether that's just simply going out and covering a softball game or doing extended highlights on women's basketball or whatever it may be, and finding cool stories like that because they deserve it just as much as everybody else.
Oh, they do indeed. And I think having a opportunity to launch a show of an all women's lineup as well, which is historic in itself, and I'm sure you eat in that history books now for the rest of your life
Thank
as
you.
well. So that's a big achievement and something which you may not have thought you'd be able to be a part of when you were growing up.
Exactly. It's crazy to think about. People are always like, if you could go back now and tell your younger self something, what would you say? And I was like, I would just tell her to buckle up because
Yeah,
it's going to get exciting and you have
yeah.
no idea. Like, I don't even think I could believe it then if you would have told me now what has happened. So,
Well, I would be mistaken not to ask you about some of, I guess, your biggest stories which you've got to cover in your career so far. Has there been any big stories which you've enjoyed being involved or a part of?
yes, I feel like I love this question, but I always hate it because I'm like, God, it makes me have to think so hard. I'm
Well,
like,
we
I've
like we,
done,
we, we want my guests to think, and that's the whole point.
I'm like, gosh, I should have came more prepared.
Well, this show is an after-call conversation, so really, the people know that this is now not scripted, and I have not told you
Yeah,
any of my questions beforehand. This is
no.
all on the spot.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I've covered so many cool events, honestly, and just have been so thankful. Just within the last weekend, I got to cover Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs
You
starting
did.
quarterback, and then Robert Griffin III, who was the only Heisman winner out of Baylor University, which is based in Waco, and he went on to play professionally and now is a famous sports broadcaster as well. The two of them were inducted into the Texas High School Sports Hall of Fame. So I just covered that recently, which was really cool. Patrick Mahomes had a really cool announcement saying that his organization that he works with is now working with some high schools to launch special jerseys, which I
That's
thought was
cool.
really neat.
Yeah.
And one of those high schools is from Texas, and it was the high school that he attended, which
Oh,
is
that's
really
nice.
awesome. So that was really neat. I also got to cover the NFL draft last year when it was in Detroit, Detroit being my hometown. So it was really special for me to go back, and like I could not imagine like what my elementary school self would have thought of this moment. I it was very full circle for me. So that was cool just to be there to cover all those guys, watch their dreams come true on such a big stage. One of the guys who got drafted went to the Detroit Lions, and his name is Terrion Arnold, and he actually was from Tallahassee, which is where I was working at the time. So I
Wow.
got to do a really cool story about like how Detroit just immediately embraced him, and everybody back at home got to see that because
Yeah.
that was the guy that they knew. They
Yeah.
remembered watching him in high school, and now this guy's going to go play for the Lions, and he did. He had a really great rookie season. He was fun to watch. So I've covered a bunch of cool things. I think doing things at those bigger, um, I guess on the bigger stages is always
Mm.
neat. I love covering March Madness tournaments. I've done that a couple times now and have got to travel for that, which I think is really neat. Um, but yeah, I'm really thankful for all the opportunities I've been given. I feel like those are some big ones I've done recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like as well, when you go back to Detroit, for instance, back to your
Yeah,
hometown, I bet a lot of things has changed from when you're last in Detroit. For good or for the bad,
100%.
though.
A lot for the good, I would say. Detroit has always had a bad rep, and I remember when I moved to Colorado, people were like, "Ugh, you're from Detroit?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm from Detroit." And I always said it with pride.
Yeah.
And since the Detroit Lions have started playing well, for those who might not know like their history when it comes to the NFL, Detroit Lions were one of the worst teams in the entire franchise in the NFL's history. They are the only team ever to have an I can't remember what the exact record was, like 0 and like 16, I believe it was, where they didn't win a single game all season long. They're the
Wow.
only team still in history to have a season where they didn't have a single win. And there was a lot of times when people gave up on the city and the sports fans gave up on the teams. And since Detroit has started doing a lot better in sports and has had so much work put into it, there was this new sense of pride. And I remember standing there being like, I am so proud to say I was born here.
Yeah.
And I looked around and I've never felt more love and more passion in a place that I've ever been in my whole life. And it was so cool. It was something, a pinch me moment for sure. And it's hard to explain to other people, but it was
Mm.
really cool.
Absolutely. And I guess as well, you had a lot of emotion as well because you
Yes.
see them do something really good for a change. Because after all the disappointment you've been yourself and for all the other Detroit Lions fans getting to actually feel some goodness and some joy for a change. So at least you got to be a part of that moment for sure.
Absolutely. It was cool. It was cool for sure.
Now, I don't know if you know, well, you probably do, but the Pat McAfee show was at this year's draft, and a guy called AJ Hawk, I believe his name is, former NFL player turned broadcaster. He said that the draft should be at Green Bay, Wisconsin every year. Now, I don't know if you agree with that statement or if you think that's a load of rubbish and that it should be going to different cities every year. What's your take?
I think it's cool to go to every city every year. I think all those towns deserve it and love it, but I do think there's something special about the Midwest as a whole. And a lot of times Packer fans and Lion fans don't really like each other. And I can't say I've never been to Green Bay. It's definitely on my bucket list. It's a place I want to go, but I do think the traditions there are so cool and the people there are so nice. So I definitely get that. I just think every city loves getting to do this so much. And the
Mm,
Packers and the when it was in Green Bay and when it was in Detroit, I think those are the best two of the best like draft rating like numbers of
yeah.
people watching that they've had in years. And so I know for Detroit they had the best turnout that they'd ever seen people come to a draft up until that point. So it's cool to see. You always want to see it grow, and the storylines make it so fun. Green Bay got a little more viewership because of the Shadur Sanders saga of him dropping in the draft stock a lot, but um, still really cool to see, and it's something that I think every city needs to experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great to see that they are still getting these great numbers on.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but on linear TV, is it also streamed as well, or is it just on linear TV in the US now with the Super Bowl? 'Cause I know it's on the
yeah,
NFL
it's just
Network as
like on
well.
normal like cable or streaming.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So okay, that's good then. So it's good
yeah,
that these I guess TV networks still get some good viewers then because I know like over here, for instance, they're saying that people between apparently my age and younger do not watch TV anymore. I mean, they watch YouTube more than anything else. So it's good to see that sometimes they can draw those big numbers for TV.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's something even like in my career, I'm like, please watch TV. I want to keep my job. Please watch TV.
Yes. But I mean, on that
Yeah,
though, is there a way which you guys are moving towards streaming or putting your,
yeah.
or instead of live streaming just on TV, but also on like your website or even on YouTube to try and capture those people in my age group and below?
Yeah, so we have a streaming app. So I work for KCEN Channel 6, and we have a KCN 6 Plus app. And you can download that on your TV and I think on your phone too. And with that, we stream live on there when we do have our normal shows. And
Perfect.
then we also have been putting exclusive longer form content on there.
Oh, okay.
Um, so yeah, we it's interesting that you bring that up because within the last like 2 years, I would say it's been very interesting to see how much my job and how many other TV stations are starting to switch to this streaming mindset because
Interesting.
people aren't watching TV anymore like they
Mm.
used to. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to see. I don't love it, of course. I'm like such a traditional, like old school
Oh,
person.
me too. Me
I'm
too.
only like 26, but I'm still like, oh, I love to watch. I watch the news every morning. I
Yeah.
usually watch the national news in the morning and then the local news in the evening. And I love it. I think it's so
Yeah.
cool. And, I even watch the news while I work out sometimes. Like I like to take in that information to start my day. I think it's important. But yeah, I think there's just been such a bad rep with like, there being so much negative news out there that it's shifted a lot of people just like not wanting to consume. So I
Mm.
think finding ways to still report on what's important and still like being able to give a balance of good news every
Yeah.
day too is like really important, but also finding ways to give that and make that accessible for everybody to watch via streaming, cable, whatever is still important. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how it's changing.
No, absolutely it is. And I like how you mentioned about putting long form content on the
Yes.
streaming app because they also say, from these experts, these
Yeah.
no experts, they say that apparently people only taking 15 seconds now of
Isn't that
content.
crazy?
So it's a bit crazy in my mind that you guys are putting on longer content on these streaming apps. Are they doing well, or are you
Yeah.
still seeing numbers not as well as shorter videos or posts you're putting on those streaming apps? If
No,
you know.
honestly, they do a lot better than we think,
Oh, right. Interesting.
I was at when I told you about the Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
induction, RG3 induction this last weekend, I posted the full press conference on there. So if people wanted to watch. So it's really unique things that like you're not going to be able to watch everywhere that you can find exclusively on our app. So it's a lot of exclusive things and we try to like hype that up too of like,
Yeah.
listen, if you want to see the full version of this sit down interview, you can watch it on our app. And usually, when I mean longer form, it's typically not stuff that's longer than like 10 minutes. So
Okay.
it's still like not like super long, but for
Yeah.
us, that's like longer form because we usually only do stories that are about a minute 20
Yeah.
to 2 minutes.
Makes sense because
So,
you got so much content to fit in a half an hour show
yes,
or whatever it might be. Yeah, I get that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
because like over here we have, of course, because in our country, of course, we have a license. So if we want to watch live TV, then we have to have a license to watch live TV or the BBC because the
yeah,
BBC is funded by the license fee. Now I know in the
yeah,
US you guys don't have a license fee, I don't think, and I know of course over there you're not really governed as well like we are with Ofcom in our country. There, if we don't have partiality, then Ofcom are straight onto those who are breaking the rules of impartiality. So, but there's the differences, I guess. But I do watch the BBC because of the fact that it's a traditional form,
yeah,
and it's great to see it. But I know you probably know about the BBC now because of Donald Trump, from his first term in the White House when he called
yeah,
the BBC reporter a beauty at one point as well. So
yes.
that's
I
probably
know,
your introduction.
I have recommended um the BBC to a lot of
Oh,
people,
good.
especially like my grandparents,
Yeah.
who like want to take in unbiased reporting.
Mm.
And I don't see that as a really big issue with some of our major networks, but of course, some of them have started to shift.
Yeah.
And so for those who do want to take in it, and if you just like want a different perspective on things going on, I think it's great. I always recommend it for my granny. She, just always, she actually is very funny. She loves to take everything in via social media. And I'm like, no, you should like actually watch the news still, granny. Come on. I'm like, I actually rely on your viewership the
Yeah.
most. So
Yes.
please, but yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's a really good way to I think taking in all different forms of media can just
Mm.
be so important.
No, absolutely, I agree with that. Two more points, and I'll let you go because you said say
Yeah.
half an hour, and this is going to half an hour. So I do apologize for keeping you a bit slightly over half an hour. So I do
Okay.
apologize. Um, Two more things. One point is any goals which you want to achieve before the end of this year, because of course we're almost halfway through the year now.
Yeah. Um, Biggest things I want to achieve, I would say like there's like little things like I want to be better about posting on social media and I feel like I've slacked on that a lot. It's such a like love hate relationship with my
Mm,
job in social media. I feel like because it feels like an extra job for me at the end of the day because editing videos, doing all that stuff. I do that all day long. And so when I have
Yeah.
to make a little Instagram reel, I'm still doing my job. And honestly, I think it's harder to make an Instagram reel than I think it is to make a full 2 minute long story and edit it just because it's so different on your phone than on your laptop, I
True.
think.
True.
So
True.
that's just like a small little goal of mine. And just continuing to tell meaningful and purposeful stories is just something I preach. There's so many good people out there who have stories that need to be shared. And I like to make sure that they not only trust me, but I tell their story so that it feels like they're almost telling it.
Yeah.
I'm just the extra voice to help it all come
Yeah,
together.
absolutely. And you do a phenomenal
Yeah,
job at it. And I can't wait to
thank you.
see what stories you cover in the months and years to come as well. And
Thank
I
you.
hope that you will come back on the show again in the
Yes,
future as well.
absolutely.
I want to know. So when I reached out to you,
Yeah.
did you Google me? Did you look at those? Did you go on my YouTube channel? Or did you look at my content? What
Yes.
made you to respond to me?
Yeah. So
Apart from the
obviously,
name Thomas, of course.
having Thomas's name thrown in there definitely helped me. But yeah, I looked at your page on Instagram and I went and watched a couple of your videos. Of course, had to make sure you were legit. I can't say that I heard about your short prior, and I apologize for that. But yeah, no, once I came across it and I thought it was cool. You do so many different interviews, which I think is
Yes.
amazing, and I think that's really unique. So I really liked your work and I saw what you did, and you know, I can't say if people reach out to me all the time, but I do have a few people that reach out to do things, and you can't always say yes, but when there's
Mm.
people that stand out, you want to. And so I definitely noticed that, and I wanted to make sure I made the time for you. So yeah,
Well, I appreciate that, and I
of
do thank
course.
you for your time as always, and I'm glad that you liked what you saw, and I hope that I lived up to your expectations this evening as
Yes, you
well.
were a great interviewer. I felt like I was just talking to a friend, so
Oh,
that made
good,
it easy for me.
good,
Yes,
because that's how the show is meant to be. So,
good.
that's one of the goals. So I'm glad it's come across like that because it's meant to, and it's meant to feel all organic and
Yeah.
I guess not robotic because you get many different interviews where you just get asked similar questions and you have those answers at the top of your brain and it's
Yep.
a bit like a script, isn't it? And then you just move on to
Yes.
the next question. But this is more of a hopefully a casual conversation in a short amount of time. So it's been appreciated for you. And of course, if you didn't know, my guest was joining me from a gas station, or as we call it, a petrol station, because
Yeah,
you are heading
literally.
to you are heading to another interview. I think you mentioned to me
Yeah.
before for
Yeah.
your day job, obviously, and if people want to reach out to you to keep up with what you're doing, where can they find you? And anything else you would like to mention, is now the place you can. I'll give you the final thought.
Yes, absolutely. Probably social media, even though I said I'm working on it, bear with me. It's one of my goals. It's just my name, Sydney, and then underscore Wicker, and that's across the board on all social media. And then of course, if you want to see any of our extra cool content, you can watch it on our KCN 6 Plus app, or you can watch on our website. People don't realize, but I do everything. I write the stories, I edit the videos, I get it all up. So sometimes it takes a little extra minute. But we do get it all on there. And yeah, those are probably the two best ways. Even the KCN social media pages are a great place to follow as well. So,
Perfect. And is there anything else you would like to mention, which you think is important to get off your chest, which I'm not brought up, which you think is important?
I always just I try to lead with my heart in everything that I do, whether that's every interview or whatever. And I try to always put the people first. So I would just encourage people to do the same, be kind, and just let people speak from their hearts. And it's easy to get frustrated by the way of the world sometimes, but just take a deep breath. Everything happens for a reason and keep chugging along. You'll be just fine.
And I can't say any better than that. And it's been a pleasure to be on the show tonight. Thank you so much for your time. And if you enjoyed the episode, smash the like button, leave a comment for any future questions you may have for Sydney. And if you like the content here, want to see more of my great episodes, and all you have to do is smash the subscribe button. We've got over 308 subscribers here on YouTube. And until the next episode, which will be on Thursday, enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening.